So JA, as you heard from Jenny's wonderful introduction, has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, and people ask me almost everywhere I go, what is the connection between JA and peace? It's a fair question. I was actually traveling recently in Pakistan and Jordan over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and this question was also asked of me in stages which looked a little bit like this, but perhaps not as beautiful and grand as this evening. And I will tell you that one of the things I'm most proud of is that these nominations have brought global attention to the connection between peace, prosperity, and the economic empowerment of youth. Because you can't have peace without prosperity for all. And you can't have prosperity for all without empowering young people to own their economic success, empowering young people to think of themselves as being able to create a job for themselves and for others in their community. You can't have prosperity without having young people truly believe that they will thrive and be able to support themselves and their household. So I'm very proud of these nominations. And over the course of my remarks this evening, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, a little bit about JA, and actually give you, hopefully, some real take-home value, some concrete things you can take back to your families and to your employers. So, JA reaches over 17 million young people all over the world. We deliver 17.3 million student learning experiences per year, all over the world. And as you saw from Sheila's amazing remarks, the impact we make is in communities just like this, all over the world, where we're able to deliver programs in entrepreneurship, work readiness, and financial literacy and financial health. But what really drives me is to see how we develop young people to develop this sense of self-efficacy, the sense of more than self-belief, more than self-confidence, more than self-esteem, the ability for young people to develop the sense that they can one day own their own economic success. And I'm here to tell you there's some very concrete things, very simple things actually, simple to understand, sometimes hard to do, which you can do in your own families and you can do in your own, with your own kids to develop this sense of self-belief. There are actually just 4 things. It comes down to just 4 things. The first one is to hear from other people that you'll succeed. Sounds very obvious, right? I mean, you as a young person can develop a sense of self-belief if other people tell you that you're going to be successful, that you're going to be a leader, that you could be CEO one day, that you're going to have a wonderful career in what you've chosen to do. That sense of self-belief goes up significantly when people tell you and you hear that you will be successful. Let me tell you 2 stories. So I get a chance to travel a lot for my job, and I had a chance to go to Saudi Arabia actually when I first started my role about 8 years ago, over 8 years ago now. And I met this young woman, her name is Almaha, and I saw her present as the CFO of her little student business. And she was wearing a full abaya and a niqab, which means I could see her eyes. So it wasn't a burqa, I could see her eyes. And her eyes just lit up when she was talking about finance. She was talking about gross margin and really jazzed up about it, believe it or not. And she was talking about the growth of her enterprise and how they were going to sell more and how they'd already achieved this revenue threshold and how they're going to reach that revenue threshold. And she just was animated and her eyes lit up. So I spoke to her briefly after she presented, and I said, hey, I think you've got a real knack for finance. Have you considered finance as a career? And it was like a 2-minute conversation, to be honest. She sent me this really long note on LinkedIn afterwards, about a week later, saying nobody'd ever said that to her. Nobody'd ever encouraged her to think of herself as a business person that could have a successful career in finance. And she said it got her thinking, and now she's planning to pursue finance. So I kept in touch with her over the years. She ended up completing her degree, getting a job at one of the big 4 accounting firms. Then she ended up getting an MBA, and I just saw her actually earlier this year in Riyadh. And I will tell you, first of all, Saudi Arabia has changed quite a bit. And I'm so proud of her for being a young business leader. And I realized, and I share this story because it just reminds me how one small comment from somebody who can help inspire you and think differently about yourself can change your life trajectory. So I'm going to give you a lot of comments today and a lot of take-home things, but one thing I'd encourage you to think about is who can you do that for? You heard Sheila talked about the power of volunteering for JA. But also think about, can you actually find one person, ideally not your own kids, because nobody wants to hear from their parents how great they are, right? But think of somebody in your life that you can go to, perhaps these amazing speakers you heard, these 3 amazing people. Tell them how great they did. Tell them how they can be business leaders one day. That could change a life. And it'll make you happy, it costs nothing, and I'll tell you from my own personal satisfaction life story, having somebody do that, it makes you, as the giver of this positive feedback, just so happy and grateful. Second story, this is my own life now. So as you heard from the introduction, thank you again, Jenny, I was born in India and I moved to Toronto when I was young. And in the course of that airplane trip on KLM, we stopped in Amsterdam and we got lost, or I got lost, in the Rijksmuseum. I was lost for 8 hours in this giant Dutch museum. And I tell you the story because when we moved to Canada, I developed a very severe stutter. I had the kind of speech impediment where you open your mouth, and some people have the stutter where you get quick repetitions. But for me, I'd open my mouth, and nothing came out. I just got caught. And I don't know why, to be honest, to this day, why this happened. And for those of you who know anyone with a stutter, it really impacts your self-confidence. It really makes you think differently about what you can achieve and what's possible for you. So I went through speech therapy at the Hospital for Sick Kids. For those of you who know Toronto, it's a great hospital. And I went Wednesdays after school, and I practiced public speaking. I did this thing called Easy Onset, where the speech therapist would give me a topic, and I had to extemporaneously speak fluently, starting each sentence with easy onset to let the breath out. And that helped me. But more importantly, it helped me become a better public speaker. It helped me learn to change words in my head, because for those of you who know stutterers, when you stutter, you actually know that you're going to stutter on a word before it comes up. So it forces you to get good at finding synonyms in your head to change the words. So I became really good over these many years of speech therapy of changing words in my head super quickly to become a better public speaker. So much so that at the age of 18, I entered a public speaking contest called the Winston Churchill Medals, and I won. And that award, that positive feedback from other people, totally changed my life. It made me think of myself as capable of being a leader, of standing up in front of all of you here tonight, terrified as I am, being able to deliver a speech and feeling confident to be able to do it. So this idea of actually receiving an award from somebody that changes your mindset, JA is really, really good, I will tell you. Probably one of the best organizations in the world at giving awards. We do it really well. We give awards everywhere. You saw the beautiful video where in 118 countries now, just launched in Rwanda and growing now in Pakistan, just to give you the 2 recent additions. We give awards to young people because it changes the way they think about themselves, because they get that positive feedback. You saw some award winners already speak to you today. You're going to see a few more. And I'll tell you, winning an award, particularly in your early years, starts to make you think differently about yourself and your capabilities. So, the first way to build self-efficacy, hearing from other people that you'll succeed. The second way is to be able to turn negative thoughts into positive thoughts, what you might call optimism, but it's more than that. So there's all this great research on how you can learn to be an optimistic person. I'll just tell you one example today. So in my family, we say 3 things that we're grateful for every day. 3 things. And there's a magic to the number 3, because the first one is actually relatively easy. I did well in school today, I scored a goal in the soccer match, or whatever it might be. But the second and third forces you to turn neutral or sometimes even negative things into positive things. It builds this muscle of changing neutrals and negatives to positives. And that builds an optimism muscle. For example, try it yourself. You start with the words even though or despite. So even though I didn't score a goal in the soccer game, my team won. Despite the fact that I dropped my ice cream cone, I still have a family that goes out and buys me ice cream. Or I'll make it more personal for all of you. So even though my hockey team did not win, there is a Canadian team in the Stanley Cup Finals. Oh, I'm so glad you clapped. I expected boos. You know, as somebody from Toronto who lives in Boston, I will tell you it's painful, painful, painful to watch the Maple Leafs lose every year to the Bruins. But even though that happens, to have a Canadian team have a chance this year is very, very great to see. So I really encourage you to try building this muscle with your own families, even though and despite in your gratefuls. The third way that you build self-efficacy. So number one, hearing from other people that you'll succeed. Number two, turning negative thoughts into positive. Number three is learning by doing. You saw on stage before me these amazing student speakers who've gone through JA Company program. Well, I went through JA Company program when I was young in Toronto. And I can tell you, when you're CEO of your student business at the age of 14 or 15, it starts to really impact your confidence. Or put differently, if you haven't done it at 14 and 15, the chance of doing it in your 20s is harder. And for me, at 27, I started a company that ended up getting bought by Richard Branson, a Virgin. And I would never have had that experience had I not had the experience of JA, building my confidence and thinking about myself as an entrepreneur from a young age. So this idea of learning by doing builds mastery and builds a sense of your self-belief and self-confidence. The fourth way is through role models. And this is what JA is so good at. In fact, many of you in the room, including the laureates, of course, are amazing role models for young people. I think you kind of know that, but let me tell you that you really are. If you're in this room, frankly, you are. But more importantly than just being a role model, what JA does really well is we match role models to young people who look and act like them or come from the same schools as them. Because, for example, you know, we operate in Kenya, for example. It would make no sense for me to have Richard Branson be a role model for a young girl in Kenya. It might actually discourage her from thinking of herself as an entrepreneur. But by having that young girl in Kenya meet a role model who actually went to her high school, who's achieved success, allows that young person to see themselves as they may not have seen themselves before. So JA does that so, so well. In fact, I'm so proud of the team here at JA of BC, because what you guys do so well is create volunteering and role models to help all the populations here in BC, including Indigenous youth. I'm so grateful to the work that you've done to take JA Company program. I'm not sure if people know how innovative this really is in the JA ecosystem, and modify it to find role models from the Indigenous communities to help Indigenous youth. And on that note, I'm going to do something which is a little bit off script. In fact, most people don't know I'm about to do this. But I'd like to call on stage with me to be recognized the CEO of JABC, Sheila Biggers, to come up and please be recognized for what she's done. Come on up, Sheila, please. Come on up. You told me not to do this, but this is the benefit of being a global CEO. I just don't have to listen at times. So I will tell you that what Sheila's done for this organization, the legacy that she's built, and I'm going to remind you of the four things because she's done all four. Please stand beside me. She's done all four. She's been able to allow young people to hear from others that they'll succeed. She's allowed young people to develop a sense of optimism. She's allowed young people to truly have learning by doing programs. JA is one of the leaders in experiential learning, and what you do here is so amazing. And most importantly, you've found role models for young people from this amazing community. So I'm going to ask you all for a favor. Everyone deserves a standing ovation once in their life. Please get up on your feet for Sheila. Please, please, everyone, please. I'm going to embarrass you because I want to.
Totally awful. Thank you.
I really need